Welcome to Pros from the Underground, coming to you from my basement in northern Michigan, where I read, write, think, and say things. Today, it's a weird episode. It's what I'm calling my first highlight reel. It's great moments, great insights, perfectly cool advice for my first 8 episodes. It's a mashup. I hope you enjoy. Get ready. Here we go.
I wanted to address the concept of death because I think I can safely say that we're all afraid of dying in some way. Even people with the strongest faith have doubts and questions and curiosities. But I wanted to take it one more step and say, okay, everyone's curious at least about dying, but I think what's terrifying is the thought of dying, having not been able to speak your truth.
I was told early on by mentors that in order to have a story, you got to have trouble. If you got trouble, you got story. When the trouble ends, the story ends. I abide by that. I think it works. It's totally a good principle. But here's the thing that I stumbled upon. I believe the trouble has to plant something in the protagonist. And that something is a form of yearning. Once that's established, the narrative just blasts forward. Okay.
So I was thinking about this idea of yearning, and I have often thought that my stories have to do with longing, and then I was thinking, well, what's the difference between yearning and longing? And I actually have become quite enamored with the idea of yearning since I was watching your very first episode talking about that, and the idea of yearning and the things that we're making, the books that we're writing, the stories we're writing. And to my mind, that yearning it's almost aspirational. It's a sort of a forward desire, and longing to some extent is a backwards desire to my mind. It's sort of like I long for what was, or at least that's the way we often pair it, right?
Well, and I was thinking so much, I've so enjoyed your podcast, and I've been thinking about yearning as the great pinnacle. And I was thinking how for me, in my books, in order to get enough drama for me, I've had the yearning with a competitive yearning. You know, that
I like to say there are a million things you have to learn when you're writing fiction, and you keep learning them. Everyone has advice. So, Mary Kay Zarablev, what's the one thing out of all those millions of things that you would hold up to fiction writers and say, work on this? And I'm going to press you. I'm going to say, it can't be like a psychological thing, like, find time for yourself or something like this. I'm talking one craft, like hardcore. What's the one thing that you would hold up on? And again, I won't hold you to this. Next month you might change your mind, or a year from now you can change your mind. But today, in July of 2022, what would you say? Yeah, we should all just work on this no matter what.
Rules give structure to the fun. And to me, that's kind of like what I'm talking about. Find the rules that will have the fun, and then find the rules that will sort it out for you.
Subtext is the implicit current of thought beneath the text itself. It's what the narrator and reader both quietly know, or what the reader is quietly coming to know. It's what the text suggests but never directly mentions. In this sense, subtext allows the reader to enter the text, to grapple with it, to make meaning with it. But he becomes the problem. And it's just a fantastic narrative issue, I think, to have him become the problem itself. We don't hate him or anything, but we're just frustrated because...
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because the other thing I love about a novel, and when you get good dialogue, the same thing happens. We're not just talking at each other. We're hearing each other and being changed. By listening is being changed by what the person says to you.
It's about staying with something long enough to see what's inside it. I'm always looking up etymologies. I'm always every time I run across anything that's the slightest bit interesting, I stop and look it up. And I'm able to sound really smart sometimes.
Both sort of embrace the glorious chaos, the abundance of early writing, and then harness it. and so that harnessing comes through structure. I think that, we all have so many stories, so many lovely stories to tell, and so much to say about them, that often we get lost in the muck and in the weeds. But I think the muck and the weeds are really important. I don't think we know what our stories are about until we have walked around in the muck and the weeds for a good long time, and just really sort of, I want a little of this and I want a little of this, and we're gathering and pulling things up. And then once we've got like this, all of this stuff that we're holding, then we figure out, okay, so now what do I do? And that's where the structure comes in.
Well, to start with, if I had any answers, I'd give them to you. But that reason the essays have no answers is that I don't think there are any answers. So, but as far as tearing open, it's really interesting about prose and say poetry, that prose, for me, it's like I'm wandering around all over the landscape and pulling in, gathering up every single thing I can find to gather up, to see, not to see what it means exactly, because, it's not so much about meaning as it is about just exploring the landscape and looking at it and seeing what kind of reality is there.
I would say all of my editing is cutting. It's all cutting, it's all filtering. And I think I'd like to mention this later too, but I'm always constantly asking myself, are you oversteering the readers? Are you not giving them enough credit? It's up to them to discover. And if you're talking too much, Chad, you need to shut up and get out of the way.
Thank you. I wish that you'd have simply said that, and I could have gotten rid of a lot of my blather in my subtext episode. But that's right, my oversteering the reader. That's really sad. Said that every page of a novel has to feel like the rest of the novel. In other words, you should be able to sense what the ongoing tension is throughout, which is a really intimidating and terrible thing to tell people who haven't yet gotten through their novel, because it makes it really intense. But it works out when the novel is doing what it should do. You really can do that. You can flip open a trilogy like the Cromwell trilogy and go, yep, that's what's happening.
Yeah. And I remember saying to a friend that my challenge was that every time someone spoke in this novel, it could only be that person. It would be entirely in character. And she said, yeah, we pretty much all keep in character most of the time. And I thought, smart. Yeah, but it's hard in fiction.
Yeah.
And this thing has continued to kick me in the teeth, the brain, the groin, over and over and over again. It's gone through so many developmental edits, so many reshapings, reconsiderings, and doubts, and all of that stuff. Even had one bad night where I thought about driving down to Lake Michigan and chucking it in the dark waters forever.
Sure.
But I think we've all been there.
Sure.
However,
gosh, I think I'm a little stumped. Finish, because we get stuck in the middle, or we have a good idea and we can't see it through. So I would say finish something, beginning, middle, and end. That is a small piece of hard advice.
That is excellent.
But in essence, the gist of the lecture is this, that with all of the stumbling blocks and the monkey wrenches and all of the things, the tears of frustration, all of that stuff, I tell kids and myself and my sons, this might not be about you in the end. There might be a future patient, a future customer, a future stranger. You don't know who they are. They might not even be born yet, but they are waiting out there for you to become the best version of yourself.
When I'm working on a poem, it looks like I'm sort of looking for the gaps. I'm looking for the holes. Well, instead of thinking about or paying much attention to the whole issue of reality, I think I'm sort of opening the cracks between it to see what might be there. And that sounds so esoteric. And frankly, I have no idea what I mean. I only know that when I'm doing it, I'm very pleased if there's a crack that opens up.
But yeah, I think we all need to step out of the way, not cloud it with all of the expectations and whatnot, and maybe not make it about ourselves. I'm going to say that again because I think I like it. I think as writers, we don't have a right not to write. Let's make t-shirts, John.
Love it. Do you find it, do you have to remind yourself to come back to square one or some initial sort of question or curiosity that launched the essay?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's so much remind myself, but I certainly always, but it's the same thing with a poem. I get too launched into outer space, and at some point I need to pull back and put my feet on the ground again. But it's outer space and feet on the ground are kind of two poles of the same thing. And so I probably do have to remind myself to come back, but I really like reality. I mean, I think reality is where, that's where all the good stuff is.